At Plaster Networks, we commonly hear a number of questions and comments about Powerline networking that don't accurately reflect the current state of the technology. And we've documented some of these myths in a short presentation to provide you with a better understanding of the capabilities for today's Powerline networking standards. The first myth that we hear is that people say, well, I tried it several years ago and it doesn't work. It's important to realize that Powerline technology has advanced significantly over the past several years with dramatic improvements in signal processing, reliability, and throughput performance. So people will not necessarily have the same experience today as they did in the past. Many people confuse the earlier Powerline command and control technologies and their limitations with today's data networking technologies. So technologies like X10, Universal Powerline Bus, and LawnWorks provide very low performance, typically under 1,000 bits per second, and that's for simple applications like turning lights on and off. Likewise, many people may have experienced older versions of data networking standards such as HomePlug 1.0 or HomePlug Turbo. By contrast, the latest standards like HomePlug AV are specifically designed for the demands of applications like streaming video, with a peak throughput rating of 200 megabits per second. That's over 200,000 times faster than technologies like X10. The second myth that we hear is that the signal doesn't connect across the electrical phases or legs in a house. Now, homes here in the U.S. are typically fed 240 volts over the power drop from the electric utility, and this feed is divided into two separate legs, each delivering 120 volts. Most houses commonly have appliances running off both 240 volts, such as a dryer or oven, as well as 120 volts, and that's basically anything that you plug into a standard two-prong or three-prong outlet. Some of the older command and control technologies like X10 had difficulty traversing the phases in a house and may require installing a shunt to connect the Powerline signal across those legs. Today's standards, like HomePlug AV, will work just fine across the phases without any changes required to the electrical wiring. The Powerline signal traverses the legs across the bus bars in the breaker panel, across the lines just outside of the house in the power drop, as well as across the lines feeding any appliances that are running off 240 volts. In fact, based on performance statistics that we have gathered at Plaster Networks from hundreds and hundreds of homes, we typically cannot determine whether adapters are on the same leg or on different legs of the 240 volt feed based on their performance. In other words, the adapters all perform at the same level, whether or not they're on the same leg or whether they're communicating across legs. The third myth we hear is that the performance depends on the wiring in a house and you can't change the wiring. Well, this statement is true to the extent that performance does in part depend on the wiring in the house. However, a number of other factors influence performance besides the wiring. For instance, certain types of electrical devices in the home can generate noise that interferes with the Powerline network signal. And examples include laptop PC power supplies, noisy motors, and cell phone chargers. The effects of these noisy devices can easily be mitigated with a Powerline isolator like Plaster Networks iX2. Likewise, we've seen significant improvements in the HomePlug firmware, that is the software used by the HomePlug chip to process the Powerline signal. With the ability to upgrade the HomePlug firmware automatically through Plaster Networks service, we have seen instances where the Powerline performance increases dramatically, as much as by a factor of 5. Fourth, a question we hear quite commonly is, aren't all Powerline adapters the same? Well, Powerline adapters can be based on different standards, such as HomePlug, UPA, or HDPLC, as well as different versions of a particular standard. It's important to know that some of these technologies don't play well together. In particular, UPA is incompatible with the HomePlug and HDPLC standards. Fortunately, virtually all of the adapters sold in the US and most parts of the world are based on the HomePlug standard. That being said, HomePlug AV provides the best performance and throughput compared to earlier HomePlug 1.0 and HomePlug Turbo technologies. HomePlug AV is designed specifically for the performance and reliability requirements of streaming video throughout a house. Likewise, there's a big difference in what's inside the adapter. In particular, Plaster Networks offers an intelligent Powerline adapter that includes added hardware and software for diagnostics, management, and remote reporting. Unlike other adapters, we have included a dedicated network processor running Plaster Networks software, which provides a more reliable, higher performance Powerline network connection. Fifth, we are commonly asked about faster rated adapters and the fact that won't they always work better? The industry is going to continue to come out with faster processors, and Plaster Networks, like other vendors, will always take advantage of those advances. It's somewhat along the lines of a rising tide lifts all boats. For instance, we will shortly see adapters based on the HomePlug AV2 standard rated at over 500 megabits per second. However, it's important to realize that faster throughput rates commonly rely on higher frequency carriers, and higher frequency carriers do not travel as far a distance over the power lines. So with the HomePlug AV2 standard, you will definitely see higher throughput capacity. However, that will be at shorter distances. You may not necessarily see the same performance improvement over longer power line runs. Much of our focus at Plaster Networks is to make sure of adequate throughput to all adapters in the home, rather than just making the shortest links faster. So while we'll definitely ride the wave of faster and faster Powerline processors, Plaster Networks will also continue to enhance our unique capabilities for diagnosing and optimizing Powerline network performance. The sixth myth is, if I plug the adapters in and they work, what more do I need? Well, this is what we call the plug and pray method of installing Powerline adapters. You plug the adapters in, and most of the time they seem to work just fine. But the real question is, how well are they working? You may have adequate performance for browsing. How about streaming video? How about multiple video streams? How does the performance change over time as the devices on the Powerline turn on and off? It's helpful and important to know how much headroom you have in terms of network capacity. What is the throughput capacity between each of the adapters? How does the throughput capacity change over time? Are there any noisy electrical devices that are degrading my network performance? An intelligent Powerline adapter, like Plaster Networks PLN3, can provide you with the necessary information to determine the health of your Powerline network and to configure the network for optimum performance. The last myth that we hear is about security. My data isn't secure because any neighbor can connect to my Powerline network. HomePlug includes 128-bit AES encryption for encoding data sent over the power lines. Any network adapters must be programmed with the same network key in order to share the encrypted data with one another. Now, most Powerline adapters ship with the same default password of HomePlug AV. So for optimum security, it's important to change the password at the time of install. Plaster Networks Service provides an easy way to change the password for your entire network with a single mouse click. Most other adapters require you to update the password for each adapter one at a time, which is much more complicated and time-consuming. And as a result, most other adapters continue to run using a default password with which they shipped. Thank you for your time to learn more about Plaster Networks' intelligent Powerline networking. Please feel free to reach us with any questions you may have through our support department via email support@plasternetworks.com or at the phone number listed here. For more technical information, we encourage you to visit our support website at support.plasternetworks.com.